The Thanksgiving checkpoint is officially here through 19 games with the Florida Panthers starting 12-6-1. We're going to discuss how this start for the Florida Panthers gives them a great chance to make the Stanley Cup playoffs.
Your Locked On Panthers, your daily podcast on the Florida Panthers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
And welcome into this Thursday, November 23rd edition of the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. We're to our team every day. Thank you for making the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast your first listen of the day. I'm Armando Velez from the Hockey News, and you can follow me on X at MondoMan12. Follow the show account on X and Instagram at LO_FLA Panthers. And shout out to the everydayers who come back here and get your daily Florida Panthers fix. You can subscribe to the show anywhere you listen to podcasts and on YouTube. And if you are listening to this on the YouTube, smash that like button and subscribe to the YouTube channel, more importantly, as well. So the Florida Panthers lose to the Boston Bruins by a final score of 3-1 at home at Amerant Bank Arena in front of another sold-out crowd. 4 out of their 9 games have been sellouts this season, and even for the broadcast, they've been mentioning how the Florida Panthers ranked 16th in attendance and all. And Anson Carter in the pregame for the NHL on TNT was giving a lot of praise to the South Florida fan base, how whenever there are games in Sunrise, Florida, even with big market teams or big name teams, Original Six, you name it, the Florida Panthers fans are showing up, and it doesn't feel like an away game anymore for the Florida Panthers when the teams like the Toronto Maple Leafs come to town, even Boston Bruins. We saw a lot of red in the crowd as well. And even, I mean, the only home game that I've been to this season was the home opener against the Leafs. And even I wasn't seeing an overwhelming amount of blue in the crowd when I went. And even on TV, when you see the lower bowl, you're not seeing an overwhelming amount of the opposing team's colors. So I want to give a shout out to the fan base. You guys have been rocking that place as well, averaging like 17 to 19,000, and they were talking about how it's a 1,000 person increase in the crowd this season compared to last season. And that puts the Panthers in the middle of the pack as well, and it helps with the NHL being a gate driven league as far as revenue and helping with the salary cap as well. So the Florida Panthers being relevant and being in the years of making the postseason and deep runs, it's definitely helped the local economy for sure. And hopefully it really helps the NHL as well, as the Panthers are continuing to win over and over again and all. But as far as the game for the Florida Panthers in this one against the Boston Bruins, and honestly, this game was basically lost in the first period for the Panthers as they were dominating the possession. They were getting up in the middle of the ice, at least in the beginning, and winning their board battles, generating speed through the neutral zone. But it really came down to the Panthers' inability to solve Linus Ullmark and getting the second chance opportunities as well to convert. I mean, the Vezina Trophy winning goaltender had some incredible saves on this one in this game, especially early on, where there was one where the forecheck was going. Lundy turned into a loose puck and then turned into a chance from Sam Bennett as well. And then later on in the second period, there was a shot by Nico Mikkola deflected, and then Kevin Stenlund tries a second chance opportunity, and Linus Ullmark reaches out with the leg and all. And the Panthers, they were, I believe there was a point where they were leading in the shots on goal category 8-0, and still they weren't getting the pucks through on Linus Ullmark as well. But then you see how one bad break for the Panthers, and the Boston Bruins convert on their limited opportunities as well. OEL on a pinch, and then Montour is left on an island 2-on-1 where Charlie Coyle goes through to two Panthers and then scores backhand on Sergei Bobrovsky. I don't know how I don't know how the shooting lane was open there. Bobrovsky a little bit late to his right, where he was beat blocker side. But hey, it's not going to be perfect every single time for this Florida Panthers team. And listen, the Boston Bruins, they were ready to battle in this one as well and weather the storm. And even the Panthers, they were ready to send a message to Charlie McAvoy. Nick Cousins gets a hit on McAvoy near the board. Ryan Lomberg as well, as far as finishing his checks too, and all. And even with this one, the both of them going to the box. Nick Cousins and Charlie McAvoy in this one, and also with later in the game, McAvoy sticks his leg out on Matthew Tkachuk, and then Matthew Tkachuk bumps into Linus Allmark as well. He kind of gets away with something there as well. So this was a very physical game. This was, as far as teams not liking each other, this is the perfect uh, scenario when you see playoff matchup, a 40 point difference between these two teams, and then the team that has the President's Trophy, the no adversity throughout the last season, and being embarrassed. Like we said on Winans Wednesday, Jim Montgomery felt embarrassed as far as that series lost to the Panthers and all. And but for the Panthers, even in their one goal that they got, how did they score? They got in front of the net and they disrupted Linus Allmark as well. That wasn't really happening, especially in the third period. For the only goal that the Florida Panthers scored, Montour didn't get an assist on that one. But man, how he performed, how he was skating on that shift all over the zone. The heads were on a swivel from the Boston Bruins. Gets it down low to Nico Mikkola, gets it to the point to Nick Cousins, shoots and redirects by Anton Lundell. And Anton Lundell, gotta give a lot of credit to him stepping in Barkov's spot on that top line. Him and Eetu Luostarinen are knowing where to find each other when they're out in space and even in the offensive zone. We spoke all about that goal on Friday with the give and go with Eetu Luostarinen and Anton Lundell as well. And not the best game for the likes of OEL and Dmitry Kulikov as well, even though Dmitry Kulikov had a great shot opportunity off a turnover by Boston and then turn it into a shot on goal, but it was saved by Allmark. But still, on the second goal, why was Steven Lorentz the last one, the last one back checking and the last one in the zone? Where was the defense there and did not give Bobrovsky an opportunity to be protected there? And then when you see Beecher forcing Bob out of his net, it was going through the crease. It was not going to go in, but then with Oliver Ekman-Larsson trying to deflect the shot and protect the net, goes off him and in. And even we said it earlier in this segment, the pinch caused a 2-on-1 for the Boston Bruins that led to Charlie Coyle's score as well. And even on the third one, the Panthers lose the battle in the corner, and then DeBrusk drives all by himself, and nobody is there to clean up the rebound opportunity for Jake DeBrusk, as he got a second chance opportunity on Sergei Bobrovsky and then scores to make it 3-1. But even with the Panthers in the third period, 4 of their 6 shots on goal came with the extra attacker on. And there was a point where there was like 8 minutes without a whistle. And the Panthers were just having a hard time getting up the middle. The Boston Bruins were just protecting the ice so well that Linus Allmark wasn't really tested in that third period. So lots of missed opportunities for the Florida Panthers against the Boston Bruins. And even at times, Sergei Bobrovsky was coming in clutch when the Panthers were trailing. He was out on his stomach laying on it as Trent Frederick had an opportunity, and it's poked away as well. So, we saw a lot on Wednesday night how the lack of speed that the Panthers had through the neutral zone, the Boston Bruins really protected that well, especially with the lead. That is their shutdown period, as well as they are still one of the best teams in the NHL, especially what they do defensively. When they have leads, they don't give up their leads. And Panthers going into this one, they were 1-5-0 going into the final frame when they trail. So that's a when you look at that as a trend for the Panthers, that there's not many concerns about the Panthers through 19 games, but that is a telling stat for the Panthers when they do go into the later periods for the Panthers. And faceoffs, the Panthers were 37% on the night. They were controlling possession, but you could have had a little longer and had the Bruins out of sorts if you were able to get your faceoff wins, 37% on the night. But the encouraging thing is for the Panthers as well is that after going 59% on the PK in the playoff series, the Panthers are still continuing to get better in the special teams department, especially when they are down as well. So even though for the Bruins, one of their shots, their goals came on the 4-on-4, as well as Panthers go to the box, then the Bruins, and then the Panthers go again, and that little bits of 4-on-4, the Bruins take advantage as well. Even though the Panthers, I believe the shots attempts at 5-on-5, 54-37, but still, when you watch the actual game and you see from the eye test, the middle of the ice was for the most part taken away, and you look at the heat map on Natural Stat Trick, the high slot, oh my goodness, almost no shots on goal from the high slot as well, with traffic in front. So that is definitely hopefully what the Panthers, when they look at that and look at a later game against the Boston Bruins, they take some lessons learned from it. But hey, the Panthers, it's only game 19, so the Panthers are definitely not in a panic after losing to the Boston Bruins in game 19 of the regular season. It's not. I don't feel discouraged about the loss on Wednesday like I did in the first matchup, because the first matchup you had a 2-goal lead and you couldn't protect it. So the Boston Bruins were just the better team, and Linus Ullmark, he set the tone early that led to that win for the Boston Bruins against the Panthers. But in segment number 2, we are going to discuss more of this Thanksgiving checkpoint for the Florida Panthers, where they stand in points, power play percentage ranks in the league, Sergei Bobrovsky as well. We are going to discuss this and more here on the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast.
Your Locked On Panthers, your daily podcast on the Florida Panthers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Segment number 2 here on this Thursday, November 23rd edition of the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast. Thank you once again for making the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast your first listen of the day here on a Thursday. And this Thursday being Thanksgiving, I want to wish everyone a happy Thanksgiving. And I hope that if you do watch football, that you are enjoying the football. And if you are a Dolphins fan, you get to be at ease today, because you get none of the games going on today have any effect on the AFC East standings or even the battle for the number 1 seed, as they're all NFC matchups for this one on Thanksgiving. So I hope you get. I'm going to be watching football at ease for sure today. So the Panthers, 12-6-1, 25 points in 19 games, a 657 points percentage. You know what their pace is as far as points in an 82 game season? Right now, that point pace for the Florida Panthers is at 108 points. And Florida Panthers fans, let's breathe in and then breathe out. Isn't it great to be in this, for this team to be in this position and not having to scratch and claw and play playoff hockey from January on? It doesn't look like the Florida Panthers are going to be in that position this time around. As you know, when you're thinking about the last 10 games of the season last year, you are one. Personally, for me, I'm thinking, man, if the team doesn't make the playoffs, as far as content creating and as far as summer, I don't want to have a short summer, or I don't want to have a long off season, excuse me. And for the Panthers, now where they are standing at second in the division at 25 points, 6 behind the Boston Bruins, with the Boston Bruins having a game in hand. But at this point in time, And now that you saw the run that the Florida Panthers are on, do you really care where the Florida Panthers actually finish in the division? I'm at the point where I don't care for sure. And this team, yeah, you think about the Boston Bruins last year winning the President's Trophy and not having to deal with a lot of adversity as far as losing. They did deal with adversity as far as injuries to start last season, but the Panthers, for them, it was a combination of both with adversity and still getting some growing pains as far as newcomers like Nico Mikkola, Kevin Stenlund, OEL, and all. And still, they're finding ways to win without really getting a big contribution from special teams. And like Jacob Winan said on our Wednesday show, only 2 periods where the Florida Panthers were mostly healthy, and that was with your backup goaltender in Anthony Stolarz in. We're talking about the game against the Anaheim Ducks last Friday. And going back to the Panthers 2 years ago, which honestly feels like a long time ago now when the Panthers won the President's Trophy. And honestly, that was such a different team. So much has changed. And you got to be, it is Thanksgiving. So I'm thankful that the Panthers are going through the adversity of having to learn how to play without guys in the lineup, the guys stepping up. We mentioned Anton Lundell, we mentioned Etulis Thurin, and all. It hasn't been easy for them having to go up and down the lineup. Kevin Stenlund starting on that fourth line. Man, that Lomberg, Stenlund, Lorentz line had such a great start in the season, but now it's Kevin Stenlund having to go up a spot and also taking defensive zone draws in closing minutes of regulation as well. And Nico Mikkola jumping in on the rush and getting pucks down low as well, which he's having a career season. So definitely got to be thankful that the Panthers are going through adversity and answering the call, as well as the stat for Thanksgiving. Over 70% of teams that are 4 points out or fewer have a chance to make the playoffs. 70% of teams who are in that position. Panthers have the 10th best points percentage in the NHL, 4th best in the Eastern Conference. Man, the West is great this year. A lot of great teams out West. And the Panthers have struggled against the West. Thankfully, most of their games don't come against the Western Conference. Only 32 of them. So that's a great sign for the Panthers. Goals for, they're currently at 20th. Goals against, 9th. So we spoke all about the defense, what they're doing at 5-on-5 specifically. Power play percentage, we mentioned how it's still a work in progress, which you're without Alexander Barkov right now. You're having 2 defensemen right now on the power play. You're not having Matthew Tkachuk behind the net or out in front. You're seeing him currently on the right flank right now, which, you know, I don't wish that Tkachuk I don't wish for Tkachuk to be in that part of the power play. I like it when he's the net front presence that he is, and also threading the needle to Sam Reinhart in the bumper to disrupt goaltenders. So maybe maybe as far as the power play struggles, it's more of more dealing with injuries than it is scheme. Well, maybe partially scheme, because with 2 defensemen and 2 of your forwards being net front presence, you're missing something in the middle of the ice, or even on the flanks as well. Not necessarily the middle, excuse me. The flanks and someone has to go there, right? So right now Chucky is taking that position, and when Barkov does come back, we do see a little bit of an adjustments where Paul Maurice did say there is a chance that Sasha Barkov could return on Friday against the Winnipeg Jets. So it looks like that everything that's going on this week. Barkov's not on IR, by the way. So it all looks like that it's precaution as far as the knee-on-knee hit that he had on Friday against Jackson Lacombe. So precautionary as well. Panthers still possess the puck a lot. So even though their PK percentage isn't the best, they are eliminating a lot of their high danger chances because of how much they possess the puck. Shots for, they're still fourth in the NHL. Shots against, their fifth best. Bobrovsky, it's funny because when it comes to goaltenders and having to come up with the clutch saves, when you look at 904 save percentage and 2.69, if you're just box score watching, you're thinking, Bobrovsky's having a decent year, not the best year, but man, he's protected leads as well when clutch situations come. Definitely got to be impressed with Sergei Bobrovsky and not letting this Stanley Cup final appearance and the short offseason really affect him as far as preparation and performance as well. And there's a five-way tie, five-way tie for second most wins in the NHL. And the guy who has the most wins in Alexander Gorgiev, who has 11, he has an 891 save percentage and a 3.01 GAA. The Colorado Avalanche could outscore a lot of their issues, which once again, why goalie wins is not a stat. But when NHL GMs vote for the Vezina, the main thing they look at is wins. that's the thing they look at the most as far as that. And the Boston Bruins, the Panthers' recent opponent, it's likely going to be a split timeshare. But when you look at the lack of goals against for them, you got to picture that at least Jeremy Swayman right now is the leader. I mean, also Jonathan Quick is having such a resurging season as well. Igor Shesterkin has been hurt a little bit in this season, and Jonathan Quick I thought that he was a shell of his former self, and he's coming up big for the New York Rangers this year. The Panthers, ninth least penalized team in the NHL. That's encouraging. We spoke about how the Panthers are possessing the puck and having it in their offensive zone a lot, which is also helping with not going down a man as well. Sam Reinhart, second in the NHL in goals, right behind Kyle Connor and Austin Matthews right now. Barkov, even though he has missed the last few games, 17 points in 16 games and a plus minus of plus 14. One of the league leaders as far as that category. Matthew Tkachuk still almost at a point per game. Carter Verhaeghe having more power play time, three power play goals. And this is what we wanted out of Carter Verhaeghe as well, getting more of that power play time. And he's getting that right now with the first unit, replacing Evan Rodriguez just a few weeks ago. Nico Mikkola, we mentioned him earlier as far as jumping in on the rush and also closing in gaps using his long reach and protecting the puck. So whenever he has the puck on his opposite side and someone's trying to go for a check, his long reach helps not only with turning the puck, forcing the other team to turn the puck over, but also protecting the puck too. So that's what's so encouraging about a signing like Nico Mikkola. And yeah, we're not going to get the big hits like Radko Gudas had, but when you're talking about puck protection, Nico Mikkola is definitely a huge upgrade this season. So definitely want to give him a shout out as well. And Ekblad and Montour, man, their skating looks great. And like Paul Maurice said, with it being upper body injuries and them skating for weeks, months before, that is definitely a really helpful part as Ekblad even on Wednesday. There are times where he was giving the Panthers the zone entry himself. He was entering the zone himself and creating shot opportunities and trying to feed inside, even though the Boston Bruins were active with their sticks as well. So I'm very encouraged by the skating of both Ekblad and Montour. And as far as the timing, as far as defending the rushes, that's gonna come within time for the two top four defensemen for the Panthers. So patience. We have to have a little patience when it comes to that. But in segment number 3, we are going to preview the Florida Panthers game between them and the Winnipeg Jets, as they will be welcoming Winnipeg on Black Friday at Amerant Bank Arena. We're going to discuss that and more here on the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast.
Your Locked On Panthers, your daily podcast on the Florida Panthers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Segment number 3 here on this Thursday, November 23rd edition of the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast. Thank you once again for making the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast your first listen of the day here on a Thursday. And once again, happy Thanksgiving to everyone. And programming note, this is our last show this week, as I will be traveling throughout the Thanksgiving weekend and all of next week. So there will still be shows next week, just not 5 days a week, probably like 2 to 3 next week, as I will be taking my microphone on the road and be watching Panthers games probably on demand in the next week and then discussing them. So thankfully, technology is freaking great during this day and age in 2023 and all. So that is your programming note as far as that. So no Fairbanks Friday tomorrow as well. So the Winnipeg Jets come into town for against the Florida Panthers, where the Florida Panthers have lost 3 straight games against the Jets. Paul Maurice still has not defeated his former team. Paul Maurice, for what it's worth, is 0-2-1 against the Winnipeg Jets. But, man, can the Winnipeg Jets score? Kyle Connor, 14 goals, leading the leader on his team by almost double the amount of goals, 22 points in 18 games. But he is a -6. So he is he is on the ice for a lot of goals for and a lot of goals against. But also the Winnipeg Jets, one thing that is going to be a big key to the game for the Panthers here is scoring on special teams, because the Winnipeg Jets are towards the bottom as far as PK percentage at 72.9%, 29th in the NHL, power play percentage, middle of the pack as well. And goals against at 5-on-5, 13th. Their total goal differential at 5-on-5 is plus 13. Hellebuyck is not having a Vezina-like season, but still he is one goaltender that you need to disrupt early and often. The Panthers failed to do that against Linus Ullmark. You got to be able to do that against Connor Hellebuyck. 900 save percentage, 2.84 GAA, and has the same amount of wins as Sergei Bobrovsky. What happened as far as the first matchup for the Florida Panthers and the Winnipeg Jets? The middle of the ice was not protected for the Panthers. As far as controlled entries, the Winnipeg Jets were able to get through fairly easily. Active sticks in the neutral zone and the cat zone had the defense on their toes. But that was game 2 of the season for the Panthers on October 14th, a matinee. It was a 4 p.m. start for the Panthers against the Jets. So still a lot of getting to know each other as far as new teammates, new scheme, not necessarily new scheme, but new players coming into a new scheme. But the Panthers still trying to get their legs going as well as far as the season. And that was a time where the Panthers, through the first 2 games, they only had a lead for 10 seconds as well as they go up and score, and then the Winnipeg Jets score 10 seconds later right after, and they also get a shorthanded goal on the afternoon. And with Kyle Connor, he gets 2 of his 14 goals in that game, one of them being an empty netter. And it's all about eliminating the Winnipeg Jets in space. Josh Morrissey is continuing a point per game for this season as far as having a career high in points last season. He's at a +7 right now. Cole Perfetti right now, 6 goals, 9 assists, 15 points in 18 games at a +8 as well. So there's a lot of research. There's a lot of new energy, it seems, in Winnipeg. I know they've had their attendance issues as far as not many people know what the direction of the team is, but they did sign Mark Scheifele and Connor Hellebuyck to lengthy extensions, but it's producing in wins. Rick Bowness had a short-term deal as far as his contract, but looks like that he is going to be extended, hopefully for the Winnipeg Jets. As far as continuity, he is extended far past this season as far as where the expectation was for Winnipeg, because like we mentioned in segment number 1, this is a gate revenue driven league as far as that. And if you're going into full rebuild mode even though Winnipeg is a Canadian market, it is probably the second smallest market or smallest, depending. I've never been to Ottawa, but where Ottawa is, where the Senators play, that it's not in the city, so it's one of the bottom 2 as far as Canadian markets as well. So it was either trade those guys, get some assets, and it's going to be a long rebuild, or try to remain competitive. And with hockey, it's really hard to you don't see a lot of homegrown players walk as much in the NHL as much as you do in other sports. And a lot of it has to do with contract terms as well, and clauses in their contracts too. So the Winnipeg Jets are bringing some continuity to their lineup, even though players like Patrick Laine, was traded out of there a few weeks ago to Columbus. Pierre-Luc Dubois wasn't happy there as well, and now he's with the Los Angeles Kings as well. So they're looking to be a squad with more continuity as well, and a team that was seen as mediocre as well. Looks to be proving a lot of people wrong as far as their ability to remain competitive, as they were seen as a team in a bit of a crossroads going into this season. They are second in the Central Division, tied with Colorado, and 2 points behind the Dallas Stars too. So definitely a team to get up for as well, especially if you're Paul Maurice, who just want to get a win against your former team finally. But hopefully we see that on Friday night, as once again Winnipeg will be in town. 8 p.m. puck drop from Amerant Bank Arena. And there's a crazy theme going on with South Florida sports. Dolphins play the Jets, the New York Jets. The Florida Panthers play the Winnipeg Jets, and the Miami Heat play the New York Knicks. So the two themes are New York and Jets when it comes to the South Florida matchups and all. So it's going to be a fun sports weekend as for sure in the South Florida landscape as well. And it's the last last week of the regular season, for college football. A lot of rivalries as well during this Thanksgiving weekend as well. So it's going to definitely be a fun weekend full of sports. And I hope that all of you get to spend time with your loved ones this weekend. And if you choose to relax as well and watch some sports this weekend, awesome. But if you happen to work, and especially if you're in retail, my hat goes to you. Tip of the cap to you for dealing with a whole bunch of people who sometimes you can't make them happy no matter how much you try to satisfy them in an item that they want and all. And I want to give a shout out to the retail workers during this time, especially on a day like Black Friday, even though with technology these days, more people are turning to ordering stuff online. So want to give a special shout out to all those people on what's going to be a crazy weekend this week as far as preparing for the holiday season. So we're going to be back for you guys next week. Don't know when, but we will have an episode sometime next week discussing the weekend that was for the Florida Panthers, and as they prepare after they play the Winnipeg Jets, to go on an Eastern Canadian road trip, as they will face the Ottawa Senators, Toronto Maple Leafs, and the Montreal Canadiens next week as they hit the road for an Atlantic Division road trip. But in the meantime, if you like what you're hearing, please subscribe to the podcast to be notified every single time the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast jumps into your podcast feed. Don't forget to also subscribe to the other shows on the Locked On NHL network, including Locked On NHL, Locked On Fantasy Hockey, Flip Livingstone, and Stu Roden, and Locked On NHL Prospects. Thank you for making the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast your first listen of the day. So I'm Armando Velez, signing off. And you've been listening to Locked On Florida Panthers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, where it's your team every day.